Hello and happy Monday. I hope that you had a great Monday. I hope that your day went well. I hope that you are remaining safe through the storm, regardless of where you are. I never want to take, for granted that all of my, people who support me are, in North Carolina. I recognize that a lot of you are in all different, parts of the globe. And so, my heart goes out to you. I pray that, you're being safe and that you have all of your emergency preparedness, that you're ready to go, right? And so, I just want to, I can't thank y'all enough. Today is day number 11 of the 25-day Wife Life Live experience. And, the support, the feedback, and the encouragement has been, overwhelming. And I am so, so, so thankful. I am so grateful, and I cannot wait to share with you guys what the Lord has placed on my heart to do. And so I cannot wait to share, and I sincerely hope that, regardless if you are supporting me, via, live videos, or if you are supporting me, through blogs, or if you are supporting me wherever it may be, I really hope and pray that you are being empowered, right? Because it is my ultimate goal for you. So one of the reasons, why I chose this topic, right? This is a, particular topic that no one really wants to talk about, right? And so, before I, go into that, I'll wait a little bit until, a little bit more people come on and join us. But, let me just start out by saying, oh my goodness, I just want to thank all the women who participated on the call-in sick support call last night. I can't even put it into words. The amount of love, the amount of vulnerability, the amount of transparency. Last night was truly, truly amazing. And, without you guys, it would truly be impossible. And so God continues to confirm, He continues to bring clarity. And I am so, so thankful for everyone. There were women on the call who I don't even know, right? And so I'm just in awe of God's timing, His presence, and just His ability to know that His hand is on, everything. So I just want to thank everyone for being on the call-in sick support call last night. And I really hope that it blessed you. And I really, really sincerely hope that you were filled some way, somehow. Okay. So let's just jump right on into things. If this is your first time joining the 25-day Wife Life Live experience, as I said before, this is day number 11, and I cannot believe that I have been live streaming for 11 days. I have never done this before. And so, I truly believe that, not only is it an experience for me, but, for you as well. And so if this is your first time joining and watching the 25-day Wife Life Live experience, the 25-day Wife Life Live experience was really an opportunity, for women to, get to know me, and me as I peel back my own layers, right, off of some of my own personal experiences. And so this 25-day Wife Life Live experience, I want it to truly, truly be an experience for you. I had one of my, faithful supporters, Rebecca, she saw me over the weekend, and she said, Shanetta, this is really an experience, right? She's like, I really have to peel back my layers. And so that's what I want. I want to be authentic. I want to be raw, and I want to be naked, and I want to be transparent with you, to ultimately have these, next couple of days to really peel back your layers and really to experience those things, right? So let's jump right on into things. So this is, tonight I am talking about, that one time I packed my bags. If you know me, as the 25-day Wife Life Live experience continues, every day, I try to be a little bit more raw, authentic, and transparent than the day before. I truly, truly believe that, that there are not enough resources, surrounding, real talk and real wife life about millennial wives and millennial women. And so that is what I do. Before I get started, if this is your first time joining, I want to thank you. We like to be very interactive here. Please feel free to, write down any questions, comment, give some feedback, or anything that you may have. I am, if you don't know me personally, I am Shanetta J. Harrell. I am a social worker by day. I am the founder of Sisters in Christ's Kingdom, and you can head over to my Instagram at Shanetta J. Harrell, and you will be able to find me there, and you'll be able to find some additional resources there. So I am, going to take a break. I totally forgot to plug up my computer. And so this is the first time that this has happened while I have, been live. And so I'm just going to take 2 seconds to plug in my computer, if you would excuse me. All right, I am back. That has never happened to me before, and so thank you so much for just your support. So moving on, like I was saying, if you want more information, about Sisters in Christ's Kingdom, you can head over to my Instagram and find me there. My name is Shanetta J. Harrell there. All you have to do is click on the SIC tab, and I will be able to add you to the email list, and you can find out more information there. Lastly, I am a online wife life resource for millennial wives and women. And I empower you guys to pivot your layers one day at a time. And I do that through holistic strategies and approaches. And so what that means is I am compassionate about empowering the whole woman holistically. That means that I am compassionate about empowering you spiritually, empowering you mentally, empowering you emotionally, empowering you financially, empowering you from a health wise, from an intimate wise. That is how I want to empower you. And so, that is, oh, thank you. Good info so far. I'm taking notes. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are, we like to be transparent here. And so I'm very, very excited that you, have decided to join me. As time goes on, more women will, hone in, but for right now, we will keep things going. So thank you so much for taking notes. So let's just get right on into it. So tonight, my topic is that one time I packed my bags, right? So I know you're probably thinking like, oh my God, I can't believe that she's talking about this. But this is the reality of what women need to know. Women need to know and understand that, we are human, right? And there are some good times in marriage, but there's also some bad times in marriage. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to, particularly talk about this subject is because, we're scrolling down social media. We see everybody, everyone looks happy. Everyone's taking selfies. Everyone's buying stuff. And everyone just looks like they're living in this blissful, world, right? No one ever talks about what is really going on behind closed doors, right? No one's ever talking about the low times and the bad times of marriage. And so what I wanted to talk about tonight is that one time I packed my bags. So, my husband and I are going on year 3 of marriage, and I am, definitely a millennial wife, and so is my husband. He is a millennial husband, right? And so I remember this one particular time, my husband and I had just gotten married. We had moved into our first apartment. We were broke. We didn't have that much money. We were not making, nearly as much as what we make now. Things were rough, right? We had just gotten married. We were just getting into the swing of things. There was just so much going on. We were learning each other. We had never lived with each other. And so there were so many different things that were going on. And so not only were we trying to adjust to one another, but we were trying to adjust to, the purposes that God had, for us. And so this one particular time, I remember, being, it was something small. It was something minute. I can't even remember what we were arguing about or what we had disagreed about. But what I do remember is that it was something very, very small. And, it was like a switch went off, right? And I just went off. And, ladies, you know how we do. I don't know who you think you're talking to. Just all this pride, all this boast, all this anger. And so, I went into, my closet. We had like this very, very small apartment. It was like 900 square feet, which I've shared before. And, I got my stuff and, I left, right? And I didn't even go anywhere. I sat in the car, right? I sat in the car. And, one of the things that I remember about my husband is, after probably 10 minutes, he came outside to get me and, he's like, Shanetta, it's really not that serious, right? He's like, I love you and I want to fight for you and you don't have to run from me, right? And so one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this story in particular is because how many of us, run away from things when things get hard? How many of us really do not we really don't know how to handle conflict, right? And so, my mission in life is to, empower millennial wives and women to peel back their layers to reach the core of their dysfunction, right? And so whether that's dysfunction in your job, if that's dysfunction in your marriage, if that is dysfunction, with your friends, whatever that may be, this particular topic, for me was very hard because I did not understand why I was so angry, why I decided to leave, why I was so mad, about something so very small. And so for me, I had to peel back my layers and I had to say, okay, I had to ask myself some questions. And so I'm going to share with you some of the questions that, I asked myself and some of the questions that ultimately helped me to peel back my layers, not only, at the time that, my husband, that I packed my bags, but also sharing with you some of the questions that I have to ask myself daily. Oh, thank you, Rasha. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Thank you. And so tonight, I am going to empower you to ask yourself 3 very important questions. And so if you're taking notes, please feel free to take notes. If you're on your phone, please feel free to, take notes on your phone. And so the first thing, that I really want you to ask yourself is, what is the trigger? Or what are the triggers, right? So if you're like me, I have triggers. We all have triggers. And, triggers are not always negative, right? Triggers can be something that's positive. So even when we look into, our intimate lives, there are triggers, that get us going, right? But when we look at conflict and we look at dysfunction in our marriage, there are triggers that set us off, right? And so for me, a trigger for me is when you raise your voice, right? Even if we're talking about, the weather, right? If you raise your voice at me, that is a trigger for me. I'll go into defense. It's a coping mechanism. I shut down. I go off. I'm emotional. Like an emotional roller coaster. There's dysfunction, and that's just a trigger for me, right? And so when my husband would raise his voice, even if it was just a little bit, that would send me, over the edge, and I would immediately go into defense mode that I had to, defend myself. Right? And so when I really begin to peel back my layers for question one, so remember, question one is, what is the trigger, or what are the triggers? For me, I really had to, say to myself, Shanetta, what is going on with that? Like, what are those triggers? Right? So that leads me to question number two. Question number two that I want you to ask yourself: why does it bother you so much? Right? Why does it bother you so much? So if I correlate my answer to question number one and I say, okay, if yelling is the trigger, why does it bother me so much? Right? Well, for me, it bothered me because I felt less than. It bothered me because I didn't feel respected. It bothered me because I felt validated. It bothered me because, it wasn't healthy, right? It bothered me because, I felt like I didn't have a voice, right? So then we transition into question number three. Question number three is, peeling back your layers and what was shown to you growing up. So this is the third question that I really kind of want to spend some time talking about, right? So for me, if we going back to number one, yelling is the trigger. Going to question number two, it bothered me because, of X, Y, and Z. Going to number three, what was shown to me growing up, right? So for me, my mother and I always have conversations about her experiences, and her being, having multiple, marriages, right? And so for me, I had to get to a point where, me and my mom had a conversation about, the things that I saw growing up ultimately affected how I communicated with my husband. So I want you to hear that. What I experienced as a child and growing up ultimately affected me in my marriage, right? And so, my mission in life, one of my missions in life is to empower millennial wives and women to peel back their layers to get to the core of their dysfunction. Right? To get to the core of their dysfunction. And so for me, I had to, have an honest conversation with my mom. And I had to say, Mom, I get it. I am, becoming defensive. I packed my bags one time, because that was something that I saw. Right? It was something that I saw. And so I had to get to a place where, number one, I could address it. Number two, I could process it. And number three, I had to move on, right? I had to move on. And so by addressing it, let's just face it, addressing it doesn't take that long, right? Once we address it, we know what it is and we address it. But what takes the longest time is when we have to process it, right? So it took me a very, very long time to process those things. And so I had to get to a point where I had to say, you know what? The next time that my husband raises his voice, right? And so then we had to pray about that. Then we had to go seek wise counsel about that. And then my husband had to do the same thing, right? My husband had to do the same thing. He had to go through that same process of addressing it, processing it, and moving on. Right? Those three things. And so I can say that happened in the first couple of months of our marriage, right? And, now I can't even, my husband won't even, sometimes I have to say, can you speak up? Right? Sometimes I have to say, can you speak up? Because he understood that, okay, this affects her this way. This, it ultimately affects him this way. This is not God's way. This is not God's definition of love. And so this is the behavior. Let's modify it and let's change it and let's move on. Right? And so what I really want to empower you, tonight is to really ask yourself, in the area of dysfunction in your marriage, in your interpersonal life, in your friends, on your job, on your workplace, social media, men, women, parents, children, whatever that may be, in the area of dysfunction, there's something there, right? And so for me, that one time I packed my bags, that was more so about my childhood experiences for me, right? That was more so about my childhood experiences. And, my mom and I are, are so close, and we have honest conversations, all the time, about how we are able to, bounce back from these things, right? So that one time I packed my bags, it really wasn't about Shanetta and Shanetta's shell and Shanetta's defense mechanism, but it was more so about seeing my mother do that, right? And knowing, okay, this is what women are supposed to do, right? As I have shared in my blog posts, as I have shared in YouTube, I grew up, with a single mom who was, very assertive, and she was an alpha female, right? My mother could probably jump over the river and keep swimming, right? But the reality of it was, I packed my bags that one time because that was what I had experienced growing up. And I had to get to the point where I had to sit down and I really had to pray. And I had to say, God, because at the time I didn't even understand where that was coming from, right? I would just leave, right? I would just leave. And so I had to sit down and I had to say, God, show me myself. Show me my childhood experiences. Show me the things, tell me the things and the reasons why I am this way, right? Show me why my behavior is coming off this way to my husband. What is going on? I had to really say that. And so, I think this is a subject that we as women, we get together, we have a glass of wine, we talk, we chill, we laugh, we play, we joke. But no one's really talking about that time that we left our spouse or that time that our spouse left us, right? No one's talking about that. Why aren't we talking about that? Because it's uncomfortable. It's vulnerable. It requires substance. It requires conviction, right? It requires all of these different things. But as the word of God says, there is no condemnation in Christ. So what that means is that I can share my experience with you and not be condemned by it, but I can empower you, right, through my own personal and lived experience. And so, sis, if you've ever been the one to pack your bags and sit in the car and not go anywhere, right? I literally packed my bag, sat in the car, and I think I cried or something, and I was on my phone, right? And the other thing that I really wanted to talk about, related to this topic is, if you ever get to the point, and all marriages have disagreements, right? Let's just be real about that. If you meet somebody who says that they don't argue or that they don't disagree, they're lying, right? There's just no way that two imperfect people can come together and be perfect, right? So whenever you experience a disagreement, whenever you experience, any type of, argument or any of that, only go to God about that, right? Only go to God about that. I can sit here and tell you right now that some of the hardest, disagreements that my husband and I had, not a soul knows, right? Not a soul knows, right? And at times, we had to go to wise counsel, right? So those were people that were older than us. Those were people that had been married for 40 years. Those were people that we trusted. And those were people that, we felt that, God had led us to. Right? And so don't go call your mom. Don't go call dad. Don't go call your girl. Don't go call your best friend. Don't put it on Instagram. Don't make a Facebook status. Right? Don't do all of that. Now, my husband and I, we have kind of this 5-minute rule, right? So, whenever we get into an argument or if we disagree, sometimes, we take 5 and, we take a deep breath, go in the other room, and then we come back and talk about it, right? And so set the standard for your marriage. Set the standard and the expectation that, you have 5 minutes. You have 5 to 15 minutes to calm down, and then we come together and talk about it, right? Be honest with your spouse about your triggers. Be honest with your spouse about your childhood experiences, and be honest with your spouse about ultimately what you saw growing up. And I guarantee you that it will explain the behavior, right? It will explain the behavior, and it will ultimately, allow you to grow holistically, right? Spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, right? It will ultimately empower you to do those things, right? So tonight I am definitely over my 15-minute limit, as always, right? I don't even know why I came up with 15 minutes. I hope that this was encouraging for you, for everyone who's watching. I hope that it was empowering for you. Again, this is day number 11 of the 25-day Wife Life Live experience. And, I hope that, you are tuning in. I hope that September the 25th at 9:25 p.m., mark your calendars, put a reminder in your phone that I have some big stuff to announce, right? On September the 25th. So think about 9:25 at 9:25. I will be coming to you to talk about some big things that are going on and that God has placed in my life. And I cannot wait to share it with the world and to glorify our God, right? And so, again, thank you so much for joining. I hope that you were empowered about my own personal experience of, that one time I packed my bags, and remember to peel back your layers to see what's really at the core of your dysfunction. As always, I am Shanetta J. Harrell. I am your Wife Life resource, and I am empowering you to peel back your layers one day at a time. See you tomorrow.